So tractor hacking is a thing. Okay, to start with, there are tractors and then there are tractors. These are for doing small chores around the farmhouse. These are for planting a cash crop and earning a living. Modern tractors are technically advanced equipment. Several years before Tesla released its autopilot for cars, there were tractors that were able to pilot themselves. These tractors use a slew of sensor data along with GPS mapping. This allows the tractors to do more than just pull heavy loads. It allows them to efficiently manage both land and time. This kind of management is a must for modern farmers to survive. During the planting season, the control system uses GPS and irrigation data to control how closely the seeds are planted together. This means the farmer can get the most efficient yield out of the acreages they have. As impressive as GPS systems and onboard control computers are, the issue lies in the ECU, or the engine control unit, and this only applies to John Deere tractors. After repair work is done, a program called Service Advisor needs to be connected to the ECU to authorize the new part. The Service Advisor program can only be used by John Deere technicians. The price for a visit? $240 plus $150 for each additional hour. If the new part is not authorized, the engine will not start, rendering the tractor useless to its owner. The software running on the ECU cannot be copyrighted. Copyright laws were changed in 2016 to allow exceptions for right to repair, as well as security research, and the need for transparency in emission controls. Think Volkswagen diesels. John Deere is bypassing this little legal fact by making new buyers sign a license agreement for the firmware in the ECU. Without the firmware, the tractor is an incomplete product, and the tractor will not run. It's as vital as pistons or the steering wheel. It's this firmware that locks down the tractor after repair work has been done and requires a visit from a tech to restore operating functions. That's like HP selling computers that are loaded with special BIOS, so the computer won't even boot up unless you sign an agreement that you had to pay HP a fee to unlock the computer again every time you had to reboot. And if you didn't pay, you couldn't use your computer. Something that is worth stating is a clause in the agreement that farmers cannot sue John Deere. The license specifically forbids farmers from suing for crop loss, loss of profits, loss of goodwill, damage to land, damage to machines, loss of use of the equipment, damage to business or reputation, arising from the performance or non-performance of any aspect of the software. So, what's the upside for the owners to sign this agreement? The owner gets to use firmware that makes it a higher possibility that one or more of those things you can't sue John Deere for will actually happen. In short, John Deere manufactured and sold a product. John Deere is charging their customers, the legal owners of the product, for the privilege to repair and maintain that privately owned equipment. If John Deere is not paid to verify or does not approve of the repair, they are denying use of the equipment to the people who own that equipment. When a product is purchased, the previous owner or manufacturer has no right to enforce influence on how that item is used, maintained, or disposed of. The new owner's right to use and repair is as self-evident as freedom of speech and the rest of the Bill of Rights. So, the problems with what John Deere is doing. They've made it harder to use third-party and aftermarket parts, which keeps repair costs higher. they're charging $240 on top of the repair costs like parts and labor. And the owners of the equipment are stuck waiting for a tech. That waiting means a loss of productivity. And that has a negative effect on the value of the harvest. And that means less pay for the farmers. A lot of farmers feel like they're being gouged and abused, so they've started looking for ways around John Deere. And it's not a simple task. It's more than an issue of just getting a copy of the Service Advisor program. Even if someone stole the original installation discs, they would be useless in a few months anyway. New discs are issued every 4 months, and the old ones stop working. That is how tightly John Deere has been controlling the authorization software. Since software piracy isn't an option in this case, that leaves spending another $250,000 on a 500 horsepower tractor from one of the very few competitors there are, which is not really an option for most farmers. The second and cheaper option is to overwrite the firmware on the ECU, essentially removing the lockout and letting farmers do as they wish with their own tractors. The farmers that are choosing to hack their tractors have to find their way to very guarded websites that are run somewhere in East Europe. These sites are not something that anyone can just go to and open an account. And for those who have gotten the new firmware, are not really sharing many details about how they got it. Legally, there's nothing wrong with flashing the ECU to run different firmware, as long as the emission controls are intact. So there doesn't seem to be any criminal consequences, but farmers are worried about two things happening. The first would be John Deere remotely killing their tractors. I'm not sure if the computer systems have the hardware needed for that to happen, but it is in the realm of possibility. The second is much more likely. The farmers could be sued by John Deere, because removing the firmware is a violation of that wonderful license agreement. Of course, John Deere suing their customers can very easily end badly for them by driving future customers to competing companies. On top of that, the courts might invalidate the license agreement that John Deere's current business model hinges on. Currently, there are several states working on laws that would bar manufacturers from doing this kind of thing. So write your local representative and tell them to support right to repair, because there have been many other companies in different industries that have similar customer abusing business models. Thanks for watching, and good luck. To subscribe, click the channel icon on the top left. Top right is the previous video, and below that is a random suggestion from YouTube. Thanks again.